When we returned to the capital in triumph, I couldn't bear to see Princess Lan married off to the faraway barbarian lands, so in a moment of excitement, I proposed right in front of the court. My father was so anxious that he was pacing back and forth. You managed to disguise yourself as a man on the battlefield, but now you really want to get married? I waved my hand dramatically. I'll just knock the princess out in the bridal chamber if need be. But in the wedding room, the princess grabbed my wrist and stood up, taller than me. General Zhao, you have disrupted my plan to unify the country. What should I do now? Huh? When did the princess become the crown prince? Ding! RoyalStory reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. After returning from the court, I knelt down in front of my mother. Mother, I said I would earn a title of nobility for you with my military merits, but I have broken my word. My mother was dumbfounded. She looked at my father, who pointed at me, too angry to speak. I explained, I used my military merits to propose to Princess Lan. My mother rolled her eyes and almost fainted. This actually wasn't my fault. Really, it wasn't. Even though I had won a great victory, the emperor, being overly cautious, feared another attack from the western barbarians and quickly sought peace. And the crown prince, even more incompetent, suggested a political marriage to maintain friendly relations between the two nations. But those barbarians are rough and hot-tempered. How could a delicate princess possibly endure life there? A few years ago, I had seen Princess Lan once. Though she wore a veil, I could tell just by looking at her eyes that she was a beauty. Moreover, she was resourceful and shrewd. She controlled the Southern Summer's bird pavilion, responsible for gathering intelligence from all directions. She seldom appeared in public, but her actions were decisive and ruthless. I admired her far more than the hypocritical crown prince. I even suspected that sending Princess Lan away in marriage was the crown prince's way of eliminating political rivals. So I couldn't bear to see such an extraordinary woman sent to the western barbarians to suffer. Thus, today in the Golden Hall, just as the emperor boasted that he would grant me any reward I wished, I knelt down and loudly declared my desire to marry Princess Lan. The emperor's face darkened. The officials looked at me as if I were a fool. But since the political marriage wasn't officially announced, and there was no imperial decree, I pretended to be ignorant of it. As the emperor's word is golden, he reluctantly agreed to the marriage, almost through gritted teeth. I reassured my mother, don't worry, I can always earn more military merits. Within 3 years, I will definitely earn you the honor of being a titled lady. Princess Lan only has this one chance in her lifetime. Sending her to the western barbarians would truly ruin her life. Thinking this way, I felt it was worth it. Father slapped me on the back. You've been on the battlefield, earned military merits, and now think you're truly a man? I ask you, what will you do on the wedding night? He lowered his voice, squeezing the words out through clenched teeth. Mother looked at me, her expression complicated. The pressure was overwhelming, and I shrank my neck back. I forgot at the time. Forgot? Father was about to explode. You forgot you're a woman? I truly forgot. After disguising myself as a man and mingling with men for over a decade, my gender became a bit vague. When I was 13, my father was wronged and lost his livelihood. My mother was ill and constantly needed medication. Grandfather and grandmother didn't like me and my mother, seeing us as burdens, so they tried to sell me to a lame widower in the neighboring county while father was away working. I ran away during the night. I heard about a place that provided food and lodging, and when I arrived, I realized it was a military camp that only accepted men. Luckily, I had been practicing martial arts with father since childhood, so my physical strength was no less than boys my age, and my height was above average, making me blend in well with the men. So I stayed in the military camp and later went to the battlefield. Unexpectedly, I was lucky and earned merits in my first battle, and my name was recorded in the military merit book and sent to the capital. Unknown to many, my identity ran the risk of being discovered. I had no way back. If my female identity were discovered, it would be seen as treason, leading to the extermination of my entire family. Initially, I felt a bit depressed, but over time, I discovered that being a man had so many advantages. No men pointed and stared at me on the streets. Vendors wouldn't cheat me on the weight of meat and wine. So I stopped worrying about it. Life is about going with the flow. Marriage was something I had never considered. After all, at 26, most women my age already have children who could go to school. But I'm not too bad either. At least at this age, I married a princess. I nonchalantly patted my pants and stood up. Father, mother, don't worry about me. What's there to fear on the wedding night? At worst, I'll knock the princess out. Mother slapped her thigh. She's a princess. So what? She's no tougher than anyone else. Father closed his eyes. Beloved, shall we go check out the suburbs? I paused. For what? To find a good plot of land with favorable geomancy, buy it in advance, so the three of us can be buried together someday, and it'll be more lively. The decree for the marriage came down quickly. I didn't expect the decree to be delivered by the crown prince, Lu Mingxian, himself. He looked at me with a faint smile. General Zhao, such bravery, I am quite impressed. Not at all, not at all, I took the decree with a forced smile. Your Highness's courage is also very admirable. My father pinched me hard, and I shut my mouth. Lu Mingxian didn't stay long at the general's residence. He returned to the palace after delivering the decree. My father scolded me again. He said that Lu Mingxian would be the future emperor and that I should show respect and not to court death. My father actually liked Lu Mingxian a lot. He said he was kind and polite, gentle and refined, and would surely be a benevolent ruler. I pouted. Kind? Not at all. I have seen the true side of this crown prince. He is not a good person. If I had to describe him with an animal, it would be a viper. A venomous snake, lurking in the shadows, striking fatally without warning. 9 years ago, I entered the palace for the first time. At that time, I was an unknown young general, following the Grand General into the palace to receive rewards. The Grand General was kept behind for questioning, and I left first. But I was dazzled by the grandeur of the imperial city, looking around and lost sight of the palace attendants, and took the wrong path. From afar, I saw two people, a eunuch and a handsome young boy. I felt a joy in my heart and was about to approach when I saw the boy turn and slit the eunuch's throat with a knife. Blood sprayed onto his jade-like face, yet he was still smiling. The eunuch fell to the ground, writhing and trembling like a dead fish. The boy crouched down, wiped his hands clean with the eunuch's clothes, looked up, and his eyes locked onto mine. Even now, thinking about it gives me chills. Oh, that boy was the crown prince. So, I never believed that Crown Prince Lu Mingxian was a kind person. At the request of Princess Lan, the wedding ceremony was simplified. Just the way I liked it. I really didn't want to deal with those fake social rituals. On the 5th of June, it was a bright sunny day. Dressed in a red robe with a big red flower on my chest, I entered the palace early in the morning. Even though the ceremony was simplified, by the time we arrived at the Hua Lotus Palace to pick up the princess, it was already late. The princess didn't show her face. I only saw a tall figure from afar, wearing a red veil, bending slightly to get into the sedan chair. My colleague who accompanied me to fetch the bride nudged me and teasingly said, "Stop staring. Just look at that figure, she must be a great beauty. You, kid, are so lucky." I was a bit embarrassed. Don't talk nonsense. It's disrespectful to the princess. We picked up the princess and, with gongs and drums, returned to the general's residence. The general's residence was bustling with activity. The princess, a golden branch and jade leaf, was carried directly inside in a sedan chair to avoid any mishaps. As soon as I entered the main gate, I saw the princess's maid running over. She leaned in close and whispered, "Your Highness, the princess is tired. The ceremony is very cumbersome. How about we skip it?" I said straightforwardly, "Let the princess rest, I'll take care of everything." "Thank you, Your Highness." Princess Lan had a delicate constitution and rarely appeared in public. I knew this. The ceremony? One person can manage it. At most, it would just be laughed at for a few days, no big deal. The banquet continued until nightfall. Guests left one by one. Only my brothers from the military camp pulled me to keep drinking. Finally, my father couldn't stand it any longer, gently mentioned, "Generals, it's getting late, the princess is still waiting." "Right, right, we can't delay serious business. Brother Zhao, we'll take our leave now." They left, arm in arm, drunk. My father grabbed me and pulled me to the backyard. "What now? Are you really going to the bridal chamber?" "Don't worry, Dad. I had drunk too much and was a bit dizzy. I can handle this." "You can really handle it." "Really?" I brushed off his hand, adjusted my clothes, took a deep breath, and headed to the bridal chamber. Creak. I pushed the door open, glanced in to see the princess sitting quietly on the wedding bed. The slight fading of alcohol made me finally feel nervous. I almost walked in with my hands and feet moving together. Under the guidance of the maid and the matchmaker, we drank the ceremonial wine. Everyone left, laughing, leaving only me and the princess. I glanced at her, wondering whether to lift her red veil. Then I felt it was better to keep it on. I approached her from behind and gave her a quick neck chop. She hadn't reacted yet and fainted. Good. It didn't even hurt. I settled down, sitting down slowly. "Princess." I gently called her. "It's getting late, let's rest early." The princess didn't respond. I glanced at her again, raised my hand, and reached behind her. "Princess, let me remove your veil." My raised hand quickly descended, aiming to chop at her neck. But unexpectedly, just as my palm was about to touch her skin, a hand firmly grasped my wrist. I was bewildered. The princess used her other hand to lift the veil herself. A breathtaking face was revealed in front of me. I was stunned. Not by beauty, but by fright. No one had told me that Princess Lan and the crown prince were twins. They looked exactly alike. The princess grabbed my wrist and stood up. Oh my, she was half a head taller than me. Princess, you have quite a grip." I laughed awkwardly. Then came a shout. She suddenly pulled me into her arms. Then she lowered her head and whispered something in my ear. My hair stood on end as I abruptly looked up at her. "General Zhao has disrupted my plans to unify the kingdom. What shall I do now? Can someone tell me? How did such a big princess turn into a prince?" I broke free from her grip and stood several meters away from her. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow outside the window. I quickly said, "Princess, I'm going out to calm down." I rushed outside and chased away the brothers who were eavesdropping and planning to make a scene in the bridal chamber. Only after confirming there was no one left did I return to the room with a heart pounding with fear. Lu Mingxian, with a complex gold hairpin on his head and dressed in a bridal robe, was leaning lazily against the bed and raising an eyebrow at me. I looked at him with a complicated expression and respectfully bowed to him. "Your Highness, could you clear up my confusion?" "Sure." He agreed straightforwardly, "But what General Zhao is about to hear is a state secret of the southern Xia kingdom. If it gets leaked, I'm afraid the general can only atone with death." I turned to leave, then I won't listen. "I'm not that curious either." Lu Mingxian grabbed my wrist. "It's too late, General Zhao. You and I are already on the same boat." The late emperor, upon his death, left an imperial edict giving the black armor guard to the crown prince, leaving the faraway to Princess Lan. It was a sign of favor to them and to help them establish a foothold in this fierce imperial city. But 6 years ago, Princess Lan fell in love at first sight with a court painter, and the two of them eloped while painting outside the palace. Her departure meant surrendering Faraway to others. Lu Mingxian could not allow such a powerful support to be lost at once. So, he concealed the princess's disappearance. Princess Lan claimed to be ill and avoided people, while Lu Mingxian took full control of Faraway. When it was unavoidable, Lu Mingxian appeared in place of Princess Lan, wearing a veil. Fortunately, Faraway had always been mysterious, and Princess Lan was reclusive in nature, so no one noticed for a time. As the crown prince, Lu Mingxian took advantage of the power of Faraway to eliminate dissent within a few short years. Openly, he was courteous to others as the crown prince, but then used Princess Lan's name to stab people in the back. He played two-faced games to perfection. The Western barbarians were arrogant and frequently harassed the borders of the southern Xia kingdom in recent years. Lu Mingxian meticulously planned and had already placed his people in the Western barbarians' camp. He had a detailed plan. Under the pretext of marriage alliance, he would go to the Western barbarians in the guise of Princess Lan. The marriage convoy was composed of elite soldiers. He intended to launch a direct attack from within, capturing the Western barbarian leader alive. After listening to Lu Mingxian, I was dazed for a long time. Finally, I lightly exclaimed, "So, it's all my fault? Did my impulsive proposal screw up his plan?" Lu Mingxian smiled indifferently. "The ignorant are innocent. General Zhao need not blame yourself. But since I need to leave the palace to arrange some matters, I will stay at the general's residence for this time." "Does General Zhao have any doubts?" I shook my head. "No. Actually, I had many, but I dared not ask." Lu Mingxian stood and gently rubbed his neck. "These ornaments are indeed tiring to wear. General Zhao, help me take them off." I shuffled over stiffly. Lu Mingxian was already seated before the dressing table. This scene looked odd in every way. Looking up, through the blurred bronze mirror, he was watching me. All the more strange. I quickly took off all his hairpins and gold ornaments, then grabbed a quilt to lay on the floor. "Your Highness should rest early as well. I'll sleep here tonight. We can discuss arrangements tomorrow." Seeing Lu Mingxian nod in agreement, I immediately lay down fully dressed. Curling up under the quilt, my mind was in utter chaos. In fact, I hadn't shown half the composure I was faking. The Princess Lan I knew was actually the crown prince. The person who had amazed me with his looks a few years ago was Lu Mingxian. The one who made me bow in admiration with his decisive and ruthless methods was also Lu Mingxian. It was too surreal. I lay there with my eyes wide open, listening to the gentle breathing from the bed behind me, unable to sleep all night. The next morning, I hobbled out of the room with a sore back and dark circles under my eyes. I overheard the maids whispering. "The general must have been exhausted last night. Hush, be careful not to be heard." I gave them a complicated look and headed straight to my parents' courtyard. Upon hearing my plan to buy another house for them to move into, my parents agreed without hesitation. I don't want to live with the princess either. Better to be farther away, so we can live a few years longer. Having settled an urgent matter, I breathed a sigh of relief. When I returned to my own courtyard, I found that all the maids and servants had been replaced. Lu Mingxian was sipping tea in the courtyard. "These are all my trusted aides. I hope General Zhao understands." "I understand." I nodded. I went into the room to change clothes. "I'm going to the barracks now, Your Highness. You feel free, General Zhao." Okay. Without hesitation, I turned and left. Not because I was afraid of him, but because I felt uncomfortable. I just married him yesterday, and our relationship is quite awkward. Moreover, I am very worried that he might notice something. This person has deep thoughts, so it's always better to avoid him. Lu Mingxian said that once everything is settled, he would find a way to annul the marriage. When that time comes, we can go our separate ways, and it will be for the best. I left in a hurry, not noticing the slightly complicated expression in Lu Mingxian's eyes as he looked at me. To avoid Lu Mingxian, I stayed in the military camp for several days straight. In the courtyard of the general's mansion, Lu Mingxian turned his head and asked his trusted aide, Zhou Yan. "Am I very frightening?" "No, you're not." "Then why does Zhao Lin avoid me like I'm a snake or a scorpion?" Zhou Yan glanced at him. "General Zhao respects you." "Really?" "Absolutely." "Then I will go to the military camp to have a look." When my subordinates reported that the princess was visiting the camp, I was taken aback. My comrades teased me with smiles. "General Zhao, you and the princess seem to have a good relationship. I heard the princess brought a lot of things to comfort the soldiers." "We're all benefiting from General Zhao's favor." Two tall and strong comrades carried me directly to a luxurious carriage. "Princess, the prince consort is here for you. Many thanks to the princess for bringing us such good wine." The soldiers are very happy. A slender hand extended out of the window. With a slight backward motion of the fingers, the two comrades understood and withdrew with smiles. I sighed inwardly and boarded the carriage. "Your Highness, you are here. I came to handle some matters and thought I'd drop by." Oh. I felt uneasy. When will you be leaving? Lu Mingxian squinted at me and suddenly leaned in, his jade-like face just an inch away from mine. I held my breath, my face burning. I've lived for so many years and usually work closely with men day and night, but with Lu Mingxian, I always feel uncomfortable. Zhao Lin, are you afraid of me? No, no. Then why are you avoiding me? I shook my head. I'm not avoiding you. Lu Mingxian stepped back a bit. Go back to the mansion early tonight. I have something to discuss with you. I nodded blankly and hurriedly got off the carriage. I got off so quickly that I almost knelt on the ground, barely keeping my balance. Hearing laughter from inside the carriage, my heart pounded like a drum. Oh no, oh no, oh no, I've discovered something terrible. The way Lu Mingxian looked at me just now was strange. Could the crown prince be a... In the afternoon, during training at the camp, I smashed my foot with a meteor hammer, then poked a comrade's buttocks with a spear, and finally shot an arrow that got stuck in the hair of a passing comrade. Zhao Lin, for everyone's safety, you should go home. Ever since the princess left, you've been unfocused. We understand you just got married, so hurry back home. They practically pushed me out of the camp. I wandered around the general's mansion until nightfall, and when there was no other option, I finally gathered my courage and entered the mansion. In the courtyard, Zhou Yan was waiting for me with a smile. Seeing me return, he gestured inside. The general has finally returned. His Highness is still waiting for you. I smiled awkwardly, tidied up my clothes, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. Your Highness? Your Highness? I looked around, but no one was there. Yet, I heard a response from within, I'm here. Without thinking, I instinctively walked in. In the steamy inner room, Lu Mingxian was taking a bath. I widened my eyes and blurted out, why did you let me in while you were bathing? Through the mist, with his back to me, he revealed his broad shoulders. He chuckled, we're both men, what's there to fear? General Zhao, would you mind scrubbing my back? Given the circumstances, I couldn't refuse. I took the cloth, averted my gaze, and scrubbed his back haphazardly. Trying to divert his attention, I asked, what matter does your Highness wish to discuss with me? Lu Mingxian didn't speak. I cautiously observed his expression and saw a slight smile on his lips. The next moment, he grabbed my arm and pulled me into the bath. Having been in battles for years, I reacted quickly. I kicked Lu Mingxian in the stomach and slid to the other end of the bath, looking at him through the mist. Lu Mingxian clutched his stomach. Zhao Lin, you are being overly familiar. I wiped the water off my face, feeling weary. Your Highness, it was you who started playing around. Lu Mingxian fell silent. Since I relaxed in the warm bath after spending so many days in the camp, I decided to just sit down and soak. The atmosphere wasn't as intense as before. Lu Mingxian slowly said, the marriage alliance candidate has been chosen. She is a female dark guard from Faraway. She will be bestowed the title of county princess and will leave for barbarian land in half a month. I will accompany the mission. I was stunned, that's too rushed. Yes, and it's dangerous. Lu Mingxian said, multiple forces want to sabotage this marriage alliance. So Zhao Lin, I want to ask you to lead the troops to guard the delegation until it reaches the barbarian land border. I was taken aback, such an important task, why choose me? I heard you want to earn military merits to get an honorary title for your mother. Lu Mingxian tilted his head slightly to look at me, I am giving you this opportunity. I frowned, is that all? Of course not. I knew it. This person definitely has other intentions. Trying to find an opportunity to be alone with me? This person really is a cut sleeve. While surprised, I also felt a slight sense of disappointment. But I couldn't pinpoint the source of this disappointment. Lu Mingxian looked at me, his tone unexpectedly serious. Zhao Lin, the only one I can trust is you. You're the only one who sincerely wants to drive the Western barbarians out of our southern Xiao borders. You're the only one who doesn't belong to any faction of the court. Zhao Lin, you are upright, righteous, you are one of the few good people I know. I couldn't believe that I could receive such high praise from Lu Mingxian. For a moment, I felt inexplicably happy, but I quickly snapped back to reality. This could be part of his carefully planned trap. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, Lu Mingxian slightly lowered his eyes, staring at the water surface. There was a hint of grievance in his voice. Zhao Lin, you should trust me. After all, I've kept your secret that you're a woman for so many years. His words struck me like a bolt of lightning, leaving me stunned. My mind buzzed for a long time afterward. I suddenly stood up from the pool, causing a large splash. Lu Mingxuan's gaze fell on my face, then slowly moved downward. I subconsciously looked down as well. Because my whole body was soaked, my clothes clung to my body. Although I bound my chest every day, the lines of my chest were more noticeable than usual at this moment. My face turned red with a flush, and I quickly squatted back into the pool, glaring at Lu Mingxian. Stop looking! Lu Mingxian pursed his lips. Sorry, don't be angry. I calmed my emotions and tried to control my feelings, but my voice still trembled slightly when I spoke. How did you know? Do you remember the first time you came to the palace to receive a reward? Lu Mingxian asked. The first time we met? Of course, I remembered. I had lost track of the palace servants and got lost in the palace, accidentally witnessing Lu Mingxian killing someone. He spotted me, and I turned to leave, but he chased after me and pinned me to the ground. He choked me and grinned. What did you see? I shook my head vigorously and answered with difficulty, nothing at all. Very good, you're clever. I'll spare your life. He patted my face with a wicked smile. It took me a long time to get up from the ground and find my way out of the palace. Seeing that I remembered, Lu Mingxuan's smile widened. You didn't have an Adam's apple, I could tell as soon as I felt it. He listed my flaws. You were tall, but compared to men, your frame was smaller. At that time, your ear piercings hadn't closed up yet, I could see them up close. Oh, and... Stop talking. I hastily interrupted. No one had discovered my secret for so many years. I thought my disguise was flawless, but it turned out to be full of holes. As I struggled to digest all this, I heard Lu Mingxian slowly speak again. I have to confess something else. Back then, it didn't matter if you told anyone, I was the crown prince. Killing a eunuch was nothing, no one would care. I found you amusing, so I decided to tease you. For a moment, I felt suffocated and casually retorted, so why did you kill that eunuch? Lu Mingxuan's smile stiffened, but he quickly sneered. He was gossiping behind my back, and I overheard it. Does General Zhao think I'm cruel? No, I answered honestly. I was scared at the time, but after thinking about it, it was the servant's fault for being disrespectful. Your Highness was not wrong. Seeing that he didn't want to talk further, I didn't continue the topic. After a moment of silence, I asked, in half a month, what exact time do we depart? How many people do we need? What route will we take? These things you need to tell me in advance so I can make early preparations. Lu Mingxian looked at me, his eyes bright. All right. He suddenly stood up from the bath, and water droplets trailed down from his chest to his waist. I hurriedly closed my eyes. You can soak a bit longer, I'm leaving now. Lu Mingxuan's voice was tinged with amusement. After the sound of splashing water, I heard him dressing. When I figured he was almost done, I slowly opened my eyes. But Lu Mingxian hadn't left yet. He was leaning against the door, watching me with interest. Zhao Lin, you're quite cute. He seemed in a good mood, leaving with a spring in his step. After he completely left, I finally relaxed, quickly stripped off my clothes, and soaked in the pool, my mind gradually going blank. But the water seemed too hot, my face felt like it was burning up. Half a month later, at dawn, the bridal escort team quietly left the city gates. I didn't go with them, I led a team of light cavalry in secret protection. On the 7th day of departure, the team passed through a narrow path called One Line Sky. It was a perfect spot for an ambush between two steep cliffs. We were on high alert. Sure enough, as the bridal escort reached halfway through, a group of black-clad men swiftly attacked from the cliff. I shot an arrow, piercing one's shoulder, then grabbed my spear and charged. Speed up! Pass through One Line Sky within half a stick of incense. I shouted, kicked away a black-clad man, grabbed a horse, and dashed to the front of the team. Almost there, a figure flew backward, and I steadied him with my hand on his back. It was Zhou Yan. He turned his head to see me and urged hastily, "General Zhao, hurry and help our highness." I put him down, stepped onto the horse's back, and leaped onto the roof of one of the carriages. From the cramped space within came the sounds of battle. I peered through a gap, without hesitation thrusting my spear. The sharp spear had pierced through the carriage roof and then embedded into the back of the man in black. I withdrew my spear, jumped off the roof, and threw down his corpse. Lu Mingxian stumbled somewhat awkwardly into the carriage. He panted heavily, raising his hand to adjust his jade crown. "Thank you, General Zhao." The always polished and high-ranking crown prince had never looked this disheveled before. It stirred a peculiar feeling within me. After glancing at him once more, I reminded him, "Your Highness, sit tight." The next second, I struck the horse's rump with my spear and commanded, "Go." The team moved quickly, speeding out of the narrow passage in less than half a quarter of an hour. But the assassins were relentless in their pursuit. I whistled sharply. The brothers waiting atop the cliff received the signal and, within moments, boulders began cascading down from the heavens. Most of the assassins were caught unprepared and buried under the rocks. Several managed to escape only to be captured alive. Lu Mingxian came forward to inspect and Zhou Yan shook his head at him. "They are death soldiers. They have poison hidden in their teeth." Only one managed to dislocate his jaw in time, the rest are all dead. "Take him back to the capital for interrogation in secret," Lu Mingxian ordered, turning to approach me. "These past few days have been tough on you." He stood beside me and said, "Zhao Lin, how should I thank you? Upon our return to the capital, I hope your highness can speak favorably of me when I seek a noble title for my mother," I half-joked. Lu Mingxian didn't reply immediately. After a silent moment, he asked, "The last time you used your military merits to request a princess's hand, this time for a noble title. Zhao Lin, have you never thought of achieving something for yourself?" I was taken aback. This question. I really had never thought about it. I don't seem to desire much for myself. Moreover, no one had ever asked what I wanted. Throughout my life, I've been driven by fate. To survive, I joined the army, fought on the battlefield, and concealed my identity. For over 20 years, it's always been out of necessity. At this moment, Lu Mingxuan's question inexplicably brought a hint of sadness. "I saw a dress hidden under your bed in your room," Lu Mingxuan's calm voice continued. "Zhao Lin, do you want to return to your female identity?" I masked my emotions and turned to him. Lu Mingxian apologized, discovered it by accident. "Don't be upset." "I'm not upset," I responded. "I bought it when I was young and never had the heart to throw it away. I do want to go back to being a woman, but the moment I do, I would surely die. Survival is more important to me than reclaiming my identity." Unwilling to continue this topic, I spoke of the earlier assassins. "Do you know who sent them?" "I can guess." Lu Mingxian gazed into the distance where the sun was slowly setting. "In 3 days, we will reach the border of the Western Plains. This trip to the Western Plains is fraught with danger. I'm not confident I'll make it back alive. There are things I may never get the chance to say." He chuckled lightly. "Zhao Lin, if I return alive, let's trade places." "Trade what?" I didn't understand his meaning. "Let me marry you," he said. "You be the bride, and I'll marry you." I blinked, somewhat understanding yet also confused. He laughed heartily. "Today has great weather. General Zhao doesn't need to rush to give me an answer." 3 days later, the marriage envoy reached the border. We could only escort them this far. The forces Lu Mingxian arranged in the Western Plains took over the escort duties. The procession of carriages and horses slowly moved forward, eventually disappearing from sight. "General, General." The deputy called out to me several times before I snapped back to reality. "General, it's time to return." I glanced one last time in that direction, then tugged on the reins and turned back. Not far from the capital, we encountered a woman fainted by the roadside. The deputy dismounted to check. "General, this woman appears to be ill. Find a carriage and take her with us. Who knows what might happen if she is left alone here." The deputy hesitated. "General, be cautious of a trap." "No matter, go ahead." As he went to get a carriage, I dismounted, covered the woman with my cloak. When the carriage arrived, I bent to carry her inside myself. I intended to take her to the clinic once we entered the city, but upon entry, we encountered the soldiers from the general's residence. General! You have finally returned. The fourth prince has taken soldiers to surround the general's residence. He claims you. I frowned. Speak quickly. He claims that the Princess Lan you married is a fraud. He's here to arrest the imposter. My face changed. What? Hurriedly leading my men back to the residence, I found fourth Prince Lu Mingtang's men had surrounded it in tight layers. Seeing me, one man walked out with a smirk. General Zhao, where are you coming from so dust-covered? Just from drilling the troops. I stared at him. What is the meaning of this, fourth prince? General Zhao, didn't you know, the Princess Lan you married, she is an imposter. Lu Mingtang observed my reaction with a semblance of a smile. Impersonating royalty is a grave crime. I came quickly to arrest the culprit. Oh, by the way, I've summoned your parents to the palace. Their safety is assured. You. My blood boiled, yet I could do nothing against him. Lu Mingtang might not know who the fake princess is, but he knows that Flying Raven Pavilion is now under Lu Mingxuan's control. No matter who the fake princess is, she must be connected to Lu Mingxian. He threatened me with my parents, just to make me cooperate and frame Lu Mingxian with the crime of deceiving the emperor. But it's strange, I've searched the entire general's mansion and couldn't find a trace of the fake princess. Lu Mingtang looked at me. General Zhao, could it be that you were hiding her? I retorted, Your Highness, if you're here to capture someone, you need evidence. Evidence? Of course, I have it. Lu Mingtang had a maid brought forward. This person left the palace 4 years ago and used to serve by Princess Lan's side. She said that Princess Lan eloped with an artist 6 years ago. Isn't that ridiculous? If she eloped, then who did you marry? I looked at him calmly. The one I married is, of course, the princess. Lu Mingtang let out a mocking laugh, but his gaze fell on the carriage in the middle of the convoy. Who's in there? Someone unimportant. Oh. Then I definitely have to take a look. As he spoke, Lu Mingtang approached with his men. What if our General Zhao actually has the audacity to harbor a criminal? A wave of panic surged in my heart. Could he be accusing that woman of being the fake princess? That woman would truly be a victim of unwarranted disaster. I instinctively wanted to follow him, but Lu Mingtang was too quick. He had already lifted the curtain of the carriage. I stopped in my tracks, watching Lu Mingtang's expression change drastically. Royal sister? Dear fourth brother, you certainly have a way with things, bringing people to capture me at my husband's house. A clear and melodious female voice came from inside, and I looked up sharply. The woman whom I had previously rescued on the roadside stepped out from the carriage, her every move exuding grace and nobility. She glanced at the maid who was already pale with fright. Fourth brother, I'll remember the slander you directed at me. Royal sister, this must be a misunderstanding. Lu Mingtang was truly panicked now, hurrying forward, but the princess ignored him and walked straight to me. Snapping out of my shock, she had already taken my hand. Husband, let's go home. I need to enter the palace early tomorrow, better rest early tonight. Inside the room, Princess Lan and I sat across from each other at the table. She looked at me with interest, her head supported by her hand. Her gaze made me feel somewhat embarrassed. My royal brother was right, Zhao Lin, you are indeed interesting. She smiled. My royal brother sent me a letter long ago, asking me to return. He said after he left, someone would surely seize the opportunity to cause trouble and that I should come back to help you. My heart stirred. His Highness is very thoughtful. But wasn't your Highness eloped? She smiled, just an excuse. There isn't a man in this world worth me giving up everything for. 6 years ago, I went to Western tribes, took my trusted aides, and established my intelligence network there, developing our influence, closely allied with Flying Raven Pavilion. Now that the time is ripe, my brother asked me to return while he personally went to Western tribes for the final deployment. I was deeply shocked, and couldn't help but bow. Princess, you're truly admirable. You are not bad either. She assessed me with eyes full of appreciation. Southern Summer has produced only one female general like you. I looked up in surprise. Don't be alarmed, not something my brother said. In fact, I knew even earlier than him. After all, during your initial battles on the front line, flying Raven Pavilion was still under my control. It couldn't be hidden from me. But it did conceal from the world. I came to my senses and bowed deeply to Princess Lan again. Many thanks, Your Highness. She waved her hand dismissively, just didn't want to see a pearl covered in dust. With a yawn, she remarked, now that I've seen for myself, I realize you're as clever, kind-hearted, and righteous as my brother said. Oh, and he also praised your beauty. I was momentarily stunned and was thankful that the dim candlelight in the room could mask my blushing face. Your Highness overpraises me. No, it's not an overpraise. Princess Lan winked, my brother really likes you. Her words left me dazed. Before I could regain my composure, she stood up and headed to the bath. I'm exhausted. I should rest now. General Zhao, care to join me in the bath? I quickly waved my hand, Your Highness, please go ahead. I'll rest in the adjoining room. These siblings are truly alike. I shook my head with a smile, then pushed the door open and left. News came from Western tribes that the heir had died unexpectedly, the chief was gravely ill, multiple factions coveted the royal court, and the Western tribes were in complete turmoil. Together with several other generals, I drafted a petition to request a military campaign. It was the perfect time to strike. After more than 2 months of fierce and arduous battle, our army had occupied half of the Western tribe cities. That evening, I was in my tent studying a map. A subordinate rushed in, General, the Grand General wants to see you. Without much thought, I put down the map and went over. The Grand General's tent was filled with people. The Grand General and a cloaked man stood with their backs to us, looking at a map on the wall. Hearing the movement, the Grand General turned around, Zhao Lin, you're here. Perfect, everyone's here now. Let me introduce you to our new chief military advisor. As he finished speaking, the man next to him slowly turned around. He lifted his hand, removed his hood, revealing a handsome face to everyone. After a collective gasp, everyone bowed, Your Highness, the Crown Prince. I was the only one standing there in a daze. Someone tugged at my sleeve, what are you spacing out for? I quickly returned to my senses and bowed in greeting. Very well, no need for excessive formalities. From now on, we are colleagues and comrades in arms, so we can dispense with these courtesies. Please, have a seat. Lu Mingxian then analyzed the current situation with the Western barbarians for us. By the time our discussion was over, it was already dark outside. Everyone gradually left, leaving only Lu Mingxian and me in the large tent. Across the long table with a burning candle, we looked at each other and then smiled. A year later, we defeated the Western barbarians. Upon entering the city, flowers rained down from the skies, landing on our shoulders and bodies. Lu Mingxian was riding beside me and took a peach blossom, placing it in my hair. Instinctively, I wanted to take it down. But he said, keep it, look at those rough men, they're wearing even more than you are. I smiled and dropped my hand. Lu Mingxian looked down the street ahead, Zhao Lin, this time, I can't return to the general's mansion with you. I touched the flower in my hair and lightly nodded. The next day, in the Golden Throne Hall, the emperor's voice was stern and low, Zhao Lin, do you know what you're saying? I know. I knelt and lowered my head, but indeed, I am a woman, and I am willing to bear all the consequences. The emperor laughed in anger, Zhao Lin, you just used your military merits to exchange for a death exemption token. How do you expect me to punish you? The court officials were in an uproar. This Zhao Lin is too bold. No chance of maintaining her position, she will likely be demoted to a commoner. The emperor was silent for a long time. He rubbed his head, instinctively looking at Lu Mingxian standing at the front of the officials, before finally sighing. Deceiving the monarch is a crime that cannot go unpunished. Execution can be waived, but you will be punished. Take her away and give her 20 lashes, then strip her of her office, repossess her mansion, annul the engagement with the princess, and demote her to a commoner. I knelt and thanked him. Surviving was already a blessing. With my life intact, I could ensure my parents lived a good life again. From now on, I no longer had to live in fear. That was my greatest reward. Father, is it my turn to request a reward? As soon as Lu Mingxian spoke, all eyes turned to him. He stepped out from the front of the crowd and stood beside me. The emperor's expression improved somewhat and he smiled at him. In this campaign against the Western barbarians, you played an indispensable role. What reward do you desire? Lu Mingxuan's voice was calm but his words disrupted the tranquil waters like a boulder. I have admired General Zhao Lin for a long time. I wish to ask father for a marriage decree. The emperor's smile froze, and he closed his eyes tightly. He trembled, directing a eunuch to fetch his heart medicine. I was also in shock, but Lu Mingxian took my hand. Aren't you afraid? I looked at him, feeling a strange urge to cry. Using your reward like this, don't you think it's wasteful? Why do you think I risked my life with the Western barbarians? Lu Mingxian raised an eyebrow. There is no reward more worthwhile than this. The emperor coughed uncomfortably at the sight of our clasped hands and averted his eyes as if unable to bear watching. He sighed several times before rising. I can't control you anymore. One after another, you're all irrepressible. With that, he left the hall without looking back. I blinked. What does His Majesty mean by this? He agreed. Lu Mingxuan's voice couldn't hide his amusement. Father agreed. The civil and military officials exchanged looks before crowding around us. Oh, congratulations, Your Highness, and congratulations, General Zhao Lin. It should be Princess Consort now. After finishing his conversation with the officials, Lu Mingxian was about to take me away with him. I hesitated. I still have to receive my 20 lashes. Oh, then let's go get them, and then quickly return home. At the place of punishment. Princess Consort, is this strength okay? Princess Consort, should we give you a few more? We are quite skilled. Lu Mingxian asked me, how do you feel? The wooden plank lightly hitting my waist and abdomen made me so comfortable I almost fell asleep. It's fine, a few more would be good. The second year after marrying Lu Mingxian, I was often not at home. Princess Lan came to the manor to find me multiple times but couldn't find me. Finally, one day, she stopped Lu Mingxian. Royal brother, where is sister-in-law? I can't lock her up, she goes wherever she likes. Princess Lan squinted at him. News from the Flying Tower says that since 6 months ago, a masked instructor with excellent skills and rich combat experience appeared in the military camp. And a month ago, this instructor reportedly went to the battlefield and fought bravely. Lu Mingxian glanced at her. Since you know, why do you need to ask me? Princess Lan asked in confusion. Aren't you worried about sister-in-law at all? The battlefield is dangerous. What if? I trust her, and I've sent people to protect her secretly. Lu Mingxian took a sip of tea. She's unhappy in this prince's manor, like a bird trapped in a cage, her spirit unable to be free. That's not what I want. Whatever she wants to do, I will support her. Princess Lan chuckled, but sister-in-law is quite bold, maintaining a double identity. I wonder who she learned that from. Indeed. Lu Mingxuan's lips curved into a gentle smile, eyes softening as he looked at the pair of mandarin ducks in the pond. I wonder who she learned that from.